Have you ever looked at him, feeling an icy fear that his warmth might disappear? Are you tired of pouring your soul out in response to polite distance? This desire to make him need you like air is not a tactic. It is a cry for recognition, a cry for connection. Modern psychology offers you tactics. We, however, will turn to a strategy hidden in the very architecture of the soul. Carl Jung was not a relationship advisor. He was a cartographer of the unconscious. And he left us the key to understanding that invisible force he called projection, the force that creates an almost divine attraction. This is the real emotional anchor. Over the next hour, we will not learn to manipulate. We will learn to see. You will understand why your love and care sometimes do not work. You will learn what invisible role you play in his inner world. And most importantly, you will see the path from being the object of his unconscious fantasies to becoming the subject. A conscious woman whose value does not depend on his attention, but for that very reason becomes absolute to him. If you are ready to stop fighting for love and start radiating it, our dive into the architecture of desire begins. Right now, let's take a breath and sink into the silence. Into that very silence that settles between two people in one room. It is louder than any scream, isn't it? You know this feeling, when his gaze slides over you, but seems to look right through you. When his presence feels like a polite absence, you have become part of his landscape, comfortable, familiar, integral, like an armchair in the corner of the room. But you feel it with every cell. You have ceased to be a vital necessity for him. You have become an option, and so begins this exhausting, desperate dance. You try to speak louder, love more brightly, care more diligently, but the more energy you invest, the further he retreats, as if your love creates not gravity, but an invisible wall that grows thicker with every attempt you make to break through it. And there you are, standing center stage in the spotlight, realizing that you are dancing this passionate tango in absolute solitude. You try to guess his next step, to anticipate a movement that isn't there, listening to music that it seems only you can hear. It is a one-actor theater, and it drains the soul to its very depths, leaving only a ringing emptiness and one unspoken question behind the scenes. Am I asking for too much? And hearing this, your inner critic perhaps whispers to you about weakness, about neediness, about dependence. Allow me to interrupt this cruel whisper and say with utmost clarity, this desire is not your fault. There is nothing shameful in this thirst to be needed like air. This is not egoism or neurosis. It is an ancient archetypal longing for union, for a return to that symbolic Eden where two become something more than just the sum of two people. This thirst is sacred. It is proof that your soul is alive and will not settle for a substitute for intimacy, for polite emptiness. Moreover, this pain, this exhausting longing, is not a curse. Understand this now. It is fuel. Fuel for the greatest transformation, on the threshold of which you now stand. This is not a sign of your inadequacy. It is the voice of life itself within you, demanding depth and authenticity. But what if we have been looking at this picture from the wrong angle entirely? What if all this time you have been giving yourself the wrong diagnosis? I invite you for a moment to entertain one radical, almost dangerous idea. And now imagine for a moment that the problem is not a lack of his feelings, but their unbearable, blinding power. What if his emotional distance is not a wall of indifference, but an unconscious, instinctive defense? A defense against the immense power your image already holds over his soul, a power he himself can neither understand nor control, and so he retreats into a safe, predictable coldness. This thought changes everything. It shifts the entire dynamic from the humiliating plane of I am not good enough to the exciting paradigm of my power is not realized by him, nor, most importantly, by me. You are not a victim of his indifference. You are the unconscious bearer of an immense power that frightens you both. But a power that is not conscious is a force of nature. We wield it like children who have found a box of matches. We light a fire without understanding its nature, and are surprised why it burns us and makes others retreat in fear. To become the master of this fire and not its victim, we must study its laws. understand what fuel feeds it and what oxygen makes it flare up. But our vision is clouded. It is cluttered with the debris of superficial ideas and popular misconceptions. And to understand this paradox of his attraction and withdrawal, we must first, like archaeologists, clear the field of the debris of modern myths about relationships. We must separate psychological truth from cultural noise. Only on this clean, solid ground can we erect the structure of true understanding. So our deconstruction begins. We will arm ourselves with the scalpel of analysis and get to work. And the first layer of dust we will blow away is the popular strategies that promise everything but deliver nothing. They do not work because they are based on a fundamental misunderstanding of the landscape. You are trying to win at chess by playing by the rules of checkers, and you wonder why the opponent's king is invulnerable. Let's examine these false maps. The first, and most common, the myth of perfection. This is the belief that if you become perfect, a flawless hostess, a tireless lover, a brilliant conversationalist, his love and need for you will become an automatic reward for your efforts. But this turns a living relationship into an endless exam that you are doomed to fail. You polish the leaves to a shine, not noticing that the roots are rotting from a lack of authenticity. The soul does not seek perfection, it craves resonance. Your perfection creates a sterile, frightening distance, not attraction. The second, the myth of manipulation. This is the belief that there are secret techniques, hook phrases, tricks that can hack his will and make him feel what you need him to. This path leads only to cynicism and inner emptiness. You may get his attention for a while, but you will never get his soul. Because the soul does not yield to manipulation, it responds only to the genuine call of another soul. This is an attempt to steer a huge ship by pulling on the curtains in the captain's cabin. And the third, the most insidious, the myth of rationality. This is the belief that if you explain everything to him correctly, if you have one more serious talk, he will understand and change. But you are trying to convince a hurricane to calm down with logical arguments. All these myths are doomed to fail for one reason. They appeal to his consciousness, a small, illuminated island of reason. Meanwhile, the real drama, the drama of his attraction and fear, plays out in the deep, dark, and irrational waters of his unconscious. And when we discard these non-working maps, we for the first time get the opportunity to see the true topography of the landscape. Let's introduce one simple but fundamental distinction: symptom and cause. Imagine his emotional world as a vast, dark ocean. His sudden, all-consuming passion is a powerful high tide that lifts you to the heavens. His inexplicable coldness, his withdrawal is an agonizing low tide that leaves you on the bare, cold sand, confused and alone. You see this movement of the water, these waves, and you spend all your energy, all your life force, fighting them. You try to hold back the high tide, to stop the low tide. This is what you see. This is what you fight. This is the symptom. But the cause of these high and low tides is not in the ocean itself. The cause is in the invisible, but gravitationally omnipotent moon that silently orbits his soul. Its pull governs all this movement. Your whole life you have been trying to calm the waves, not understanding that their dance is subject to the invisible mistress of the night sky. This moon, this invisible force is your image, living in the depths of his unconscious. It is the imprint you have left on his inner world, the light or the shadow you cast on his inner landscape. It is what the great Jung, the cartographer of the soul, called the anima, his inner woman, his guide to the world of feelings, his soul. And here we come to the main conclusion of this part. Trying to change his behavior, to stop the low tide, to hold back the high tide while ignoring the state and nature of this inner moon, is the most exhausting and guaranteed to fail strategy. It is like yelling at the ocean, demanding that it stop obeying the laws of the universe. Our task is to stop looking at the water and finally raise our eyes to the sky to understand the nature of this celestial body that rules his inner world. Perhaps this sounds abstract. This moon, this anima, beautiful words, but what do they mean for your real life? I assure you, you know this gravitational force better than you think. You have experienced it yourself. You have been that very ocean whose high and low tides were subject to someone's invisible moon. Let's prove it right now. And now I want to ask you to do something important, something that could be a turning point in your understanding of yourself. In a moment, I will ask you to pause this video, not to pour tea, but to take a short yet deep archaeological dive into your own memory. When you are ready, do it. And remember a man from your past. Importantly, not the most proper, not the best or most reliable, not the one your mother or friends would have approved of. Remember the one to whom you yourself felt an irrational, inexplicable, almost magical attraction. The one who made your soul vibrate, who made you feel more alive, even if the relationship was difficult or fleeting. Now take a pen and paper or open your notes. Write down 3 qualities that hypnotized you about him. Not what he did, not his actions or achievements, but what he was in your eyes. His mysterious depth, his wild freedom, his quiet strength. Be honest. We are not looking for a resume of his achievements, but for the imprint he left on your soul. Take your time. Spend a minute or two on this. This short list is the key to everything we will talk about next. It will open the next door in this labyrinth. Do it now. Look at these 3 words that lie before you. Not just words. These are imprints of the soul. This is a cipher, a mystery that the great Swiss physician Carl Gustav Jung dedicated his entire life to deciphering. He, like no one else, understood that the strongest chains that bind us to another person are forged not from reality, but from the magic of our own unconscious. And now the most important, most difficult, and most liberating truth of this hour. Prepare yourself. This list of qualities, it has almost nothing to do with that real person of flesh and blood. It is a self-portrait. It is a portrait of your invisible inner man, your own unrealized potential. It is the blueprint of your own strength, wisdom, and freedom that are sleeping in the depths of your soul, waiting to be awakened. Jung gave this inner image a name, the animus. What so hypnotized you in that man was not his essence, but an echo of yours. You fell in love not with a man of flesh and blood, but with the promise of your own wholeness that you saw in his eyes. Your soul recognized its own potential in him and cried out, "There he is. That is who I can become." It was not love for another. It was a longing for yourself. And only now, having touched this sacred and dangerous magic of projection through your own experience, are you truly ready to understand how this same universal, immutable law works in his direction as well. You are ready to understand that the ocean of his feelings, with its high and low tides, is subject to the exact same invisible force. That in his soul, too, there is an image he is desperately searching for in the world, a mirror image of your animus, his inner woman. And this force, this inner moon in his soul, has a name that is the key to our entire mystery, and that name is anima. So what is this mysterious force, the anima? Let's turn on a light in this deep cave of the male soul. In popular psychology, the anima is often simplified to a man's inner woman, but this definition is as superficial as calling the ocean a big puddle. The anima is not just an image. She is a living, autonomous, functional complex in his unconscious. She is an organ of his soul, responsible for the ability to feel the world in color, not in black and white. She is his bridge to his own depths, to intuition, to creativity. She colors his moods, determines his capacity for genuine intimacy. A man cut off from his anima can build an empire, but his inner world will be a dry, lifeless desert. And here's the main mechanism that underlies the entire drama of relationships. A man unconsciously, his entire life, searches the external world for a woman who is a living carrier of the qualities of his own, unique anima. He looks for her in crowds, in books, in movies. And when he finds you, and something in your essence, not in your behavior, but in your authentic essence coincides with this inner image, what we call love at first sight or a sense of destiny occurs. He experiences a shock of mystical recognition, as if he has known you for centuries. He projects the image of his soul onto you. At that moment, you cease to be just a person to him. You become a goddess, a muse, a guide to those parts of himself to which he never had access. You are the missing part of his soul, externalized. Let's use a metaphor. Imagine that in every man's soul there is an inner tuning fork, a unique, quiet but constant note of his anima. He may not even be aware of its sound, but when you, a real woman with your authentic nature, your quirks, your vibrant energy, begin to sound in unison with this tuning fork, his entire soul responds with a powerful, all-consuming resonance. He feels that without you, he is incomplete. And it is true, because without your sound, his own inner instrument is silent. This is the real emotional anchor. Just as you, looking at your list of qualities, felt this resonance with the carrier of your animus. This law is universal. To turn this concept from an abstract idea into a living reality, let me tell you a story. The story of Mark and Claire. Mark was the architect of his life, a brilliant corporate lawyer. He had built it out of steel, glass, and impeccable logic. His suit was his armor, his schedule his sacred scripture. His world was one of contracts, mergers, and acquisitions, a world where everything had its price and its place. He dated the right women from his circle, successful, educated, predictable, like the movement of the stock market. But every night, going to bed in his sterile apartment with a panoramic view of the city lights, he felt a chilling emptiness. His soul was in a coma, and he did not even know it. And then one day, at a contemporary art exhibition in the countryside, where a client had dragged him, he meets Claire. Claire was an artist. Her hands were stained with ultramarine paint, her hair was tousled by the wind, and she laughed so loudly and infectiously that people turned around. She lived in a small, ivy-covered house by the forest, claimed to understand the language of trees, and had no plans for tomorrow. By all the laws of Mark's orderly world, Claire was a disaster. She was chaotic, impractical, irrational. But Mark could not take his eyes off her. In her presence, the air in the sterile exhibition hall suddenly became thick and alive, the colors in the paintings dazzlingly bright, and his own heartbeat, which he had not noticed for years, deafening. He was simultaneously afraid of her and desperately needed her. She was a beautiful disaster for his orderly life, and that is precisely why his soul, starved for chaos, recognized its queen in her. Most importantly, Claire was not trying to please him. She did not read books on how to seduce a successful lawyer. She talked about strange dreams, about the color of the sunset, about how the earth smells after rain. She was just herself, a living, breathing embodiment of everything Mark had suppressed and exiled to the darkest cellars of his soul: spontaneity, connection with nature, creativity, irrational joy. She was his anima in the flesh, and he, without realizing it, was ready to give up his entire steel empire just to breathe the same air as her. Because she was not just a woman, she was the promise of his own healing, his own wholeness. And now that the story of Mark and Claire has faded, let's talk about you. This story is not just a tale, it is a mirror reflecting the universal drama that quietly plays out in the soul of every man and every woman. Because in each of you listening to me now, there lives your own Claire, your unique, authentic, perhaps inconvenient and wild part. The part that does not fit into social frameworks, that laughs too loudly, feels too deeply, dreams too boldly. The part that perhaps loves to talk to trees. And this is where our common tragedy, our common pain lies. We spend most of our conscious lives trying to hide, disguise, and tame our Claire. We show the world, and most importantly, the man, our proper social mask, our persona. We want to be convenient, good, understandable, approved of. We have become so adept at being who we think he wants us to be that we have completely forgotten how to be who his soul desperately needs. We polish our persona to a shine, our role as a good wife, a successful woman, a caring mother, while our Claire is suffocating in the dark cellar of our soul. And his withdrawal, his coldness, the very pain that brought you here is so often not a rejection of you. It is the unconscious disappointment of his anima. His soul looks at your perfect, flawless mask and does not recognize in it the one it has been searching for its whole life. It sees a facade, but does not feel the living, chaotic, frightening, yet so desired tremor of the soul behind it. His coldness is an instinctive reaction to your inauthenticity. He is not withdrawing from you, but from your role, from your performance. He, like Mark, feels the emptiness because you are offering him a flawless contract while his soul craves living, unpredictable art. Ask yourself a question and be brutally honest. What Claire are you hiding inside yourself behind the facade of a proper woman, desperately afraid that she is the very one no one will ever love? And so that this insight does not remain just a beautiful thought, so that it does not dissolve into the hustle and bustle of the day, let's take the next step together. And now let's be extremely specific. I want you to think about the part of yourself that you consider inconvenient, too emotional, strange, or even unwomanly. The part you have learned to hide from the world, from loved ones, and sometimes even from yourself, in order to be accepted, to avoid judgment, to be good. Maybe it's your untamable passion for solitude when everyone around you demands socializing, or your ability to see beauty in destruction, or your inappropriate dark humor that you never allow yourself to show. Perhaps it's your deep, almost mystical connection with nature that you hide behind the facade of a city dweller, or your inner wildness that you carefully mask with compliance. Now imagine that it is precisely in this rejected, exiled to the shadows part, in this strangeness of yours, in this inconvenient trait, that the real key to his soul is hidden. This is your real power. This is your Claire. Your deepest wound, which you so carefully hide, may turn out to be a portal to his soul, because that is where your authenticity lives, the very energy that can make his inner tuning fork resonate. I want to invite you to a small but very important act of courage. Share in the comments under this video. Without revealing personal stories, without going into detail, just with one word or a short phrase, write, "My hidden strength is," and finish this sentence. Write it, and then scroll through the comments. You will see hundreds, perhaps thousands of answers, and at that moment you will understand something profound. You are not alone in your uniqueness. What you considered your flaw, your defect, your strangeness, is actually a sign of your belonging to a tribe of deep, vibrant, real women who dare to be themselves. This is our shared secret and our shared, as yet unconscious, power. Let's manifest it together. But what if we look at this situation even more deeply? What if his distance is not just a problem to be solved, but a task set before you by your own soul? Prepare for the final, most important shift in our journey. His coldness, his withdrawal, the very pain that brought you here is not a curse. It is a gift. It is a cruel but necessary gift. It is a signal, a loud, clear signal from your own psyche that you have dangerously tilted to one side. You have over-identified with the role of the giver, the carer, the waiter. You have begun to seek your center of gravity in him. You have lost contact with your animus, your inner masculine principle, your inner source of meaning, structure, and support. There is an immutable law of the soul. A man unconsciously withdraws from a woman who tries to find in him the inner core that she should have found within herself. He feels this unspoken, yet unbearable burden to be everything for you: lover, father, God, and the meaning of life. And his soul instinctively retreats, because this burden is too heavy for any mortal to bear. His departure, his silence, is not rejection. It is a cruel but necessary invitation from life itself, an invitation to stop looking outward and to embark on the greatest of journeys, the search for your inner center. The universe, through his silence, is asking you one single, but most important question: who are you when no one is looking at you? In the ancient art of alchemy, this is called prima materia, the primary chaotic matter. His coldness, your fear, your loneliness. This is your prima materia, raw, heavy, poisonous lead. And your task, your great work, is not to throw this lead away, but to place it in the vessel of your consciousness and transform it into the pure, shining gold of self-sufficiency. And this great work of turning lead into gold has a specific psychological name. It is the work of meeting your inner man, your animus. Here, many women, upon hearing about the anima, fall into a subtle, insidious trap. They decide, aha, so I must become the perfect embodiment of his anima. I must become that free, wild, and mysterious Claire from your story. But this is the false path. This is the path of an actress who simply swaps one social mask for another, more exotic one. This is a new, more sophisticated form of losing yourself, an attempt to adapt to him again, only on a deeper level. The true path, the path of the queen, not the actress, lies in the opposite direction. Your task is not to become his dream. Your task is to integrate your animus. What does this mean? The animus is your inner masculine principle. And this is not about masculinity in the everyday sense. It is about psychological functions. The animus is your capacity for clear, focused thought. It is your ability to build structure in your life. It is your ability to set goals and methodically achieve them. It is your ability to say a firm, calm no to what is not right for you. It is your ability to find meaning and support within yourself, rather than in the approval or presence of another. And here is the great paradox that lies at the heart of mature love. When a woman establishes a strong, conscious contact with her animus, she ceases to desperately need an external man to feel whole, protected, and meaningful. Her world stops revolving around him like a planet around the sun. She herself becomes the sun, the center of her own universe. She no longer needs, she chooses. She wants to be with him, but she does not need to be with him to survive. It is this wholeness, this calm, self-assured autonomy, this inner fullness that makes her incredibly, magnetically attractive to a mature man. He stops seeing her as a bottomless abyss of need that he must eternally fill, and begins to see an equal partner, the queen of her own kingdom. The power dynamic changes forever. Stop trying to be his dream. Become your own reality. Theory without practice is just smoke. So I want to give you one concrete, tangible ritual that will help you begin this journey. It is an exercise that, when performed regularly, can fundamentally change your inner structure. I call it the date with the animus. Here is the instruction. Once a week, at the same time, block out 2 to 3 hours in your calendar that belong only to you and your inner masculine principle. This is inviolable, sacred time. Importantly, this is not a shopping trip, not a meeting with friends, and not a trip to the spa. All of these are wonderful dates with your inner Aphrodite, your feminine part. A date with the animus is about something else. It is about structure, meaning, overcoming, and achievement. What could it be? Here are a few examples. Solving a complex logic puzzle or a game of chess. Learning the basics of programming, investing, or any other skill that requires structural thinking. A solo hike in the woods or mountains with a map and compass where you rely only on yourself. Creating a detailed business plan or a strategic plan for your life for the next 5 years. Assembling a complex piece of furniture according to instructions, requiring concentration and methodicalness. Any action where you, alone, relying on your own mind, your logic, and your willpower, create order out of chaos and achieve a concrete, measurable result. The goal of this exercise is to learn to derive a sense of satisfaction, structure, achievement, and meaning from yourself. To stop waiting for a man to come and build your world, solve your problems, give your life meaning. You begin to build it yourself, brick by brick. This changes your energetic signature on a fundamental level. You shift from a state of, please give to me, fill my emptiness, to a state of, I create my own world. This is not just time for yourself or a hobby. It is a sacred ritual of reclaiming your inner throne. It is an act of crowning yourself. And when you begin to practice these dates, when you begin to consciously build this inner throne, a fundamental transformation will happen to you. The maritime metaphor we started with will take on a completely new, triumphant meaning. You will cease to be an emotional anchor that you desperately try to cast onto the deck of his ship, praying that it will catch, that he will not sail away and leave you alone in the raging sea of your anxiety. This humiliating, exhausting role will be a thing of the past, because you yourself will become the ship, a powerful, beautiful, self-sufficient ship, a ship with its own sails, which you fill with the wind of your own meanings, a ship with its own helm, with which you chart your own course, and most importantly, a ship with its own heavy, reliable anchor, which is dropped deep into the ocean of your soul and is capable of holding you in any, even the most furious storm. You are no longer frightened by his low tide, because you know that your ship is stable. You are no longer frightened by his storm, because you are your own captain. And here is the final truth I want to leave with you. It is to such a strong, autonomous ship that knows its course that another strong ship wants to moor. Not to save or be saved, not to tow or be towed, but to sail together in the same direction, exploring the boundless ocean of life, as equals, as allies, as two whole universes that have chosen to be together. Your value ceases to be measured by his presence, because you yourself become a presence that is impossible to ignore. You become a force to be reckoned with. You become a queen. We have come a long way in this hour, from desperation to understanding, from understanding to strength. And now let's bring all the threads together. You came here with a question, how do I make him need me like air? And you leave with an answer that is both simpler and infinitely more complex. Become the one whom you yourself need. You were looking for the emotional anchor technique to tie him down, and you found its true meaning. The real emotional anchor is not a noose thrown around another's neck. It is an anchor dropped deep into the bottomless ocean of one's own soul. And the great paradox is that it is this anchor, which holds you, not him, that creates a genuine, unbreakable bond. It does not bind, it gives freedom. Freedom for you to be yourself in all your strength and fullness, and freedom for him to be with you not out of desperate need or unconscious projection, but out of a pure, conscious choice. And that is the only form of love that matters. And when this anchor finds its bottom, the landscape of your life will begin to change gradually, but irreversibly. It will not be a fairy tale of lived happily ever after, where all problems magically disappear. It will be something better. It will be a real story, a story of a relationship where there is room for both passionate intimacy and a calm, healthy distance. Because you are no longer afraid of that distance. You will begin to value it as a sacred time to return to yourself, as an exhale after a deep inhale that makes the next breath even fuller. Your love will cease to be a desperate attempt to fill an inner void. It will become what it was meant to be, a free dance of two self-sufficient universes that touch, enrich, and reflect each other, but do not seek to consume. His attention, his love, his presence will transform from a source of oxygen without which you suffocate into a beautiful, desired bonus to your already complete life. You will learn to enjoy the music of his presence without fearing the silence when he leaves, because your own melody never stops. It will sound within you, steady, confident, and calm, regardless of whether there is someone nearby to hear it. Before we part, I want to thank you personally. Thank you for entrusting us with the most valuable thing you have, an hour of your life and the courage to look within. In a world of short answers and quick fixes, to walk this path to the end, without distraction, listening not only to my voice, but also to the echo it creates in your soul, is an act of true courage. Today you have taken a huge step. You are no longer just a spectator, passively consuming information. You have become an active participant. You are an explorer who has descended into your own depths. You are an alchemist of your own soul, who has taken the lead of your pain into your hands to begin the great work of its transformation. And know that on this journey you are no longer alone. You are now part of an invisible but powerful community, a community of those who are not afraid to look deep, those who seek not easy answers but genuine wisdom, those who understand that the path to another always lies through oneself. Welcome, we are glad you are here. If this journey was valuable to you and you feel the call to continue it, subscribe to this channel to continue our joint explorations of the soul's depths. Click the bell so you do not miss the next call to dive in. Your like is not just a number, it is a signal, a beacon for other seeking souls who are wandering in the darkness, that here they can find their way home. Your simple action can change someone's life. But most importantly, before you close this window, take one more breath and share in the comments one word, what feeling you are leaving with today. Hope, clarity, strength. Your word will become the final chord of this journey for all of us, a visible sign of the transformation that has occurred. Remember, the path to another always lies through oneself.